about human evolution? When you go to the magazines, what do you find? You had apes in your ancestry. You go to the museum exhibit, what do you find? Uncle Harry himself teaching you. You had apes in your ancestry. Pick up a textbook, same thing. What's that called again? Great artwork. What question do you ask? What's the evidence? What about that guy in the lower left? What's the evidence for him? You used to be able to go to the museum and see it. There you see a skull, there you see the reconstruction. But a lot of people never read the fine print. You know the fine print says? Only the portion of the skull that's dark in color was found. Everything else from the eyebrow on down was added for your viewing enjoyment. Wow, they didn't find it. That's not enough evidence, is it? What about Neanderthal? You've seen them in the pictures, massive features, kind of stoop over, very primitive, right? Could pass for a good high school wrestling coach or somebody like that, right? They now realize they made a big mistake. They based their drawings on bones of diseased individuals suffering from several diseases, including vitamin deficiency and arthritis. And they now realize if Neanderthal were dressed in modern clothing, he'd go totally unnoticed in a crowd. It could even pass as your speaker here today. What about Nebraska Man? You know, scientists know they made a mistake, but they didn't at the time. In fact, what they did is they made this entire reconstruction. And when you see that in a newspaper, what would you ask? What's the evidence? Well, here he is. One tooth. That's all. Well, it was one tooth, the whole tooth, but nothing but the tooth. And based upon that, they not only figured out what he ate, but how he walked, whether or not he used tools. Evidently, who his friends were. And later, they were digging around, they found more evidence that they believed was associated with Nebraska Man. And they found out instead of the original Nebraska Man, they had the original Nebraska Cornhusker. It turned out to be a variety of a pig and not a man at all. Evolution now knows that was a mistake, they've corrected it, and they say this is a triumph of science, that we can correct our science. Well, here's another mistake. Piltdown Man. Somebody took the jaw of an ape, filed down the teeth, put it together with the skull of a modern man, colored everything nicely, and hid it for a scientist to find. Sure enough, they took the bait, and after a lot of deliberation, they came up with this picture of Piltdown Man. Unfortunately, it was nothing but a hoax. But this hoax stood as proof for human evolution in textbooks for at least 30 or 40 years. That was a long time. A lot of people were deceived into believing evolution was true. Well, those were past mistakes. Evolutionists know that. Okay? What's going on today? What about Ramapithecus? This is in a second grade book. It says Ramapithecus, a man-ape, was not a real man. And a second grader should look at that and say, great what? Great artwork. And ask what question? What's the evidence for that guy right there? Well, there you see it, 2 small shreds of a jaw. And that's all they had when that book was written. And from those 2 small shreds, they got Mr. Ramapithecus on one page and the rest of the family on the next page. Somebody's looking at it through evolutionary glasses, aren't they? Just like I used to do it.